Taiki. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Amy. How's it going?
It's good. So this is my very first podcast. Very honored that you could be part of it. Mm-hmm. And do you want to give a brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, really quick. For the purpose of syncing audio, I think to start off, we should do a little a high five.
You're so smart.
Oh, that was a good high five, right? That felt good. I'm singing a little bit. Yeah, I'm Taiki. I graduated from Northeastern University in 2023 around May. Born and raised in New York City, now live in New Jersey. And I'm going on a huge 5-6 month long trip all around Southeast Asia, going to Australia for a little bit, then Japan, and then on the way back, Hawaii and San Francisco. And so I'm super excited to be here with the A-team as well as Amy, and yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so exciting. We'll definitely have to talk more about your trip later in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So we met at a party.
That's right. We did meet at a party.
Yeah, and it was I think from the very first few minutes talking, then I was like, oh, this guy's so nice, and we just you're the only person I kept in touch from that I met from that party.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting is we caught up recently, and I was like, why? What was your first impression of me? And you were like, oh, this kid's too friendly. He was too friendly. So that's been stuck in the back of my head for a while. Yeah, I feel like when you go to parties and events, it's generally pretty hard to stay in touch with people. Mm-hmm. Just because you meet them only for 10 to 15 minutes, and it's a shallow connection. Mm-hmm. But I really thought whatever you were building with this YouTube channel and your perspective on a lot of different things was so interesting. So I knew I had to bother you again. But it's why I'm so excited I get to sit down here and kind of pick your brain again.
Yeah, no, not a bother at all. What I mean by too friendly was I think that most people, they try and be careful and cautious when they first meet someone. They don't want to seem too eager, because that's how it is in society. You can't try too hard. Mm-hmm. So the fact that your friendliness was kind of how I hope everyone would be in real life.
Right.
So that's why it was more than I expect out of the average person.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that, because I think the way that I approach events and parties from when I was in college is different to the way I approach events and parties post-college. And I actually kind of want to get your take on this too, because I think when I think back to my time in college, a lot of it was forcing people around me, not forcing, but more inspiring those around me to drink more as a way to meet people.
Yeah,
it's you seem cool, let's grab a shot together. Mm-hmm. And then so it very obviously because of alcohol, the conversation deteriorates very quickly and it becomes very loud and missing substance and not memorable. But I felt as we went to this, when we met at this party, the conversation was actually very deep, but it's something that I really enjoyed. And so just thinking back about it, I feel the way that I interact with these events in college and high school to now is very different.
Yeah, I agree. I think also it's a good and bad thing when in high school and college you kind of have a built-in community where you become friends.
Right.
But then out of the college or structured experience, then it's when you get to select who you talk to and how you talk to them.
Well, you think your friends are different now than they were from college? Isn't the type of friends that you now have?
Yeah. So I think right now, especially because I recently moved to New York, I don't have that strong of a friend group or that deep of friendships. I'm deepening them every day, but I think that it's not that structured or not that strong as in college yet. But yeah, I think they're definitely different. I think I'm always evolving the kinds of friends I'm with though, because in college a lot of it was chemical engineering friends or those in my same Caltech house. And then I think now we did change interests a lot, especially because I'm much more out of the engineering world and kind of rebelling against the 9 to 5. So yeah, that's what's changed a lot. How about you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, really quickly, I'll talk about me in a second. Well, I'm just curious now that do you find that when you talk to your older friends that this misalignment of interests and goals and ambition causes tension between the friends, because that's what I was going to get at, was I've experienced something similar, is like when we're all in the rat race of college together, we're all like chasing the same goal, which is, you know, getting good grades and graduating on time, like doing internships. But once you're out of college, it's kind of like every person for themselves. Like they just should, you know, go for their own ambitions and dreams. And sometimes, like, your friends will not have the same goals and ambitions and dreams.
Yeah.
And then they will think that the way that you're doing things is incorrect or not the most efficient way to do things, or their priorities are just different. And I've actually had a lot of difficulty managing those conversations, because what I think I'm doing is right. Like, I think I'm doing what's cool, and they think what they're doing is cool. And we're so used to following a path that was designed for us that it's weird to no longer have that path. I don't know, I wanted to see, so going back to the question was, is there tension between your friends from college, between you and your friends from college, because the goals are so different now?
Yeah, I honestly agree with everything you just said. That spoke my mind. But I think that without tension necessarily, we've just kind of grown apart, where like they're still amazing people, but just the fact that people naturally gravitate toward who they relate to. And not to say like it's an echo chamber, but like people want to be affirmed that what they're doing is like good or like right. Absolutely. And you want to be able to relate to struggles of creating, right? Like you create too, and like you have entrepreneurial dreams. So I think that eventually it just becomes something that if you were to try and keep talking with them, it would be forced. Where like I don't think that energy to force a friendship is necessarily worth it, because you guys can still be like friends, but you don't have to be as close as before, just because, you know, you have your own different paths, your own desires that you discovered after college. And there are plenty of other people in the world where you can live your separate lives and live your own best lives still, but it doesn't necessarily have to be together. And then I think that's just a hard truth that I've realized. For example, I did have a good friend in college, but her lifestyle is something that I wouldn't really do. Like, gotcha. Yeah, where like, you know, she goes to work, comes home and watches TV for the whole rest of the day, goes to bed, repeats, and like personally, I can't imagine that. Like that not to say there's anything like wrong with that, right? But I just personally don't find enjoyment or fulfillment in doing something like that.
And so when you guys converse or like hang out after, you know, like not hanging out for a while, are you sort of, do you have these feelings of like, oh, what are you doing? Like why is this conversation? How do I say this? It's sometimes like when you are on a very ambitious path with a lot of dreams, it feels like an awkward conversation to talk to someone that doesn't view the same way as you. Yeah,
exactly. So with this friend in particular, I actually haven't talked to her in a while because she's kind of a homebody where she doesn't reach out to people. And like when I text her, when my other friends text her, she doesn't respond to them either. So it was kind of like a more matter of circumstance where she was in college with us in the same dorm, so we could be together. But as far as other friends from college like who I talk to, I do feel that where like so much of my life and my passions and desires are with creating or thinking in certain ways or like analyzing how we can live our best lives and be our best selves. So since I know that they don't necessarily think that way, like I sometimes feel like I have nothing to contribute to the conversation.
That's what I totally feel you on that. Yeah. But so the thing though is you were always like that though, right? You were always someone that wanted to make the most out of your life. Like obviously like you're very driven from the get-go. And so she's also very driven to be, you know, to go to Caltech, and she's very like interested in, you know, math or science, whatever she ended up doing. So why the change? You know what I mean? Like, so if you were such good friends, despite you already having these sort of like core values back then, why is it harder to be friends now?
I think most of the activities or conversation within college are centered around events. Where you have like common classes, common events, common struggles. And I also didn't have the time to be working on something on my own in college. So I think it goes back to once you enter the workforce, you suddenly don't have structure anymore. So this is where you decide what are your values and what do you care about doing, rather than, you know, being told you have to care about grades or like being told you have to, you know, look cool, be popular in high school, right? So that's why I think then eventually people find their own little bubble that they feel part of.
Isn't it lonely? Like I was watching this TikTok recently about how everyone who goes from one, or who is evolving, goes through this very lonely stage because the friends that used to fit well with them no longer fit, and they're not fully realized or evolved to the point where they can have a solid new group, right, of like other fellow evolved similar people. So you're in like this interesting stage in between where it's like tough to build these really deep relationships because no one really gets what you're going through, because like you don't even really get what you're going through. You're still evolving. So I'm just, you know, thinking about my situation. I feel the same way because I'm going on this big 6-month long trip, and like no one can really relate to that. And at least in my circles, everyone's either working full time or like they have obligations to their work or their content creation or things like that, and I just want to experience the world and go travel, just different values and priorities. And I hope on this trip I'll meet people that share those same values. But, you know, I've just noticed talking to my old college friends, something feels wrong. And then trying to meet new people and join other new groups, something also feels wrong. It's in this weird middle stage. I'm not sure if you feel the same.
That's a fantastic way to describe it, actually, because before I went to college, I was feeling that loneliness of like, I'm so ready to go to college so I can meet other people who might be as ambitious in STEM and engineering as me. And then before moving to New York, when I was in San Diego, I was incredibly lonely. I talked about this in my vlogs too. I was just like, I'm dying to talk to someone who at least has like filmed a single video or like, you know, does something like has read one book similar to what I've read, you know? But it's like, yeah, it is a really lonely journey because I do feel like, not to like say like, oh, we're at the top of the pyramid, right? But it's like as effort increases, like fewer people are going to put in that effort.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So that's where like that pyramid kind of comes in, right? Where like there are fewer people who are going to be there on that journey with you sometimes.
Right. Well, so looking back, I mean, you were just like a huge STEM kid growing up, right? So do you find that you relate closer? I think we talked about this a little bit earlier too, but do you find that you relate closer to those that were doing STEM that were like on that similar journey to you, or now content creators that you talk to and work with?
Yeah, I think that the people I relate to most now would be people who have experienced a corporate job and who have still like did decently in school but are creatives now. So kind of like the balance of like who I am. Yeah, because like full-time creators who like dropped out of high school, like that's a little harder to relate to, just because I still think that education is something that we should go through to make sure we have enough human capital and something to fall back on. And plus that's, I think, skills that can help you as an entrepreneur and, you know, decrease that risk. But then as far as complete STEM kids, like, I've discovered that I'm a very creative person recently. Yeah. And on a podcast with Colin and Samira, actually, they're like,
love them.
They were actually describing how they kind of have like shiny object syndrome, where like if you see something and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do this, because creative people are like that. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I never thought that that's what made me also a creative person. Because I used to think I was just like, I used to think I was only like type A, like, oh, like very structured with like school and stuff. And while I do seem relatively organized, like my study space and like my files and my calendar honestly look pretty chaotic. And I'm just realizing that about me now, that I'm actually creative, you know?
And so do you think like school or maybe even like family culture suppressed that creative side of you? Or was it more something that you'd always known, and now that you are away from the family, away from college, you have a chance to explore it?
Yeah. I think that I didn't really feel suppressed, because I think that in doing well in school and math, that was still a way for me to be creative, because I was doing it well creatively. Which I think is also why my content seems unique to other study tips videos. Yeah. Because I'm not doing it in a very like heads down, just read 100 pages a day way. I'm doing it in like a very lazy kid way.
And efficient.
Yes, that's what I preach all the time. But something I also read the other day was like, creativity is making complicated things simple, because it's easy to make simple things complicated. And so that's also what I realized I was doing with academics. Like, oh, maybe the way I was doing it was kind of creative. But I do think that because I was in that Asian immigrant family household, that like pursuing a creative route specifically, like very blatantly, was never in consideration. So it almost didn't feel like it was suppressed. It was only like once I made my first channel, I realized I love this. And I was kind of like, wait, why do I love this so much?
Well, are you referring to the K-pop covers channel?
Yeah, that was the first channel. It was the first thing where I really built something from scratch. And I just love that feeling of like having an idea and making it reality, and having a community of people who are like, thank you for making this. You know, like, thank you for making this exist, you know?
Yeah, wow. Well, so now that I think about it, even the K-pop channel was all about creating something that was difficult to understand and making it easily digestible for other people. And that's also what you're doing now. It's like these complex concepts of discipline and studying, right? Like these things that we all really struggle with. You're making them easily digestible to a general audience.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense. That seems to be like your mission statement, right? Like things that you like on a fundamental level enjoy doing. And so that gets me thinking, I think a lot of college and really life in general is finding that mission statement for you. And a lot of that has to do with exploring, right? Trying stuff out. So I guess what I'm curious about is, as someone trying to find out that mission statement for me, how did you get to that level? Is it something that you had naturally fallen into or been very introspective about, and then did almost strategically got to find what your passions were?
I think something really important that I did was, I think it's called a bias toward action.
A bias towards action? What's that?
Yeah, so it's like you're inclined to always be doing something, to take action. Like, this kind of relates to how someone said, for many successful people, the time between idea and execution is short. So I think that when I have an idea, I'll try it right away. And so, therefore, it's like I can get in 100 reps of different things while people can get in 10. So that's why maybe I can find my thing at a certain rate.
Got it.
But that's not to say I think that I found it very early, because some people, it's just luck, right?
Right.
They're like, mom puts them in ski lessons when they're 4 years old, and then they're amazing, and it's like, well, you know, that's just luck. I do think like that's really important, and then also introspection. So I maybe introspect a little too much, like even when I'm not.
I'm the same exact way.
Yeah, even when I'm like not sit down like dedicated journaling, I'm just like thinking on a walk, like, oh, interesting, less stories. That's why my iCloud notes are like so messy, and you know.
Same. I was gonna bring out my notes too. I have the same exact experience.
Yeah, I'm like never gonna get through those iCloud notes in my lifetime. It's just way too many.
Wait, oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to like ask you about with this sort of stuff. So really quickly, I think like simply put, I think the most amazing people in this on this planet are the ones that have little time between idea and execution, which is what you were mentioning earlier. And that's the one thing that I really always struggled with. And generally, I always considered it a discipline problem. But I think it's just, at the end of the day, it is a talent to be able to go from idea to execution so quickly. Something you can definitely train, but some people are like naturally, you know, inclined to be good at those sort of things. So that's a skill that I think every person should really, really work on. Right. So and that goes from things like working out, right? Like instead of, oh, I should go work out today, and then the more you think about it, you're not gonna go and execute it. Like, oh, like thinking about like, oh, what should I be working out today? Or like, like what should I be eating beforehand? The most important thing is going out and then just getting to the gym.
Yeah.
And over time you can start to like hone in on, you know, like protein intake and specific exercises. But as a first step to even understand whether gymming is the right thing for you, like you just gotta go. Idea to execution needs to be quick. Same thing with, I'm sure like a lot of people feel that way about content too, right? Like you get a lot in your head if you're editing something for so long. Well, maybe not editing, but you have an idea for a video, and I think the best way to really have a good video is you just start recording something.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I often get like really excited about just seeing what happens. It's like, you know, if you you know, shoot a basketball, right? Like the more you think about it, it doesn't help, because like thinking about it more doesn't help you know whether it's going to go in or not. And the more shots you take, can you like eventually get some that go in. And I think, exactly, like sometimes that's a little conflicting about myself, because Sean always says like, oh, like you need to plan more, you need to think more before you do something. And I actually tend to like have the minimum like known and then I go try it, and sometimes I make mistakes, but then I'm like, oh well, it's easier finding the mistakes this way than if I were to sit down and just like try to think through every scenario, right? I think iteration is super important.
That's a very entrepreneurial mindset, by the way. And I think it's good that you're with Sean, who has like a sort of like a yin and yang sort of relationship with that sort of thing, because if you're around people that are always go, try, like it's genuinely exhausting. It is difficult to keep trying, because your rate of failure is just going to be higher. And your rate of learning is going to be higher as well, but it is exhausting.
I think that's a good point. Sometimes I think like, oh, I wish I was surrounded by people more like me, but I don't think that would be a good thing.
It is too much energy going on, too much things happening. I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier. So we had talked about this connection between, or the ability to go from ideation to execution as fast as possible. I think it's very important. But we were also talking about introspection. And this is something that I always loved thinking about, but actually didn't know how to do. And so looking back at my time in high school and in college, and even now, I think the one ability that has gotten me the furthest is the ability to be introspective. But it takes time to build the muscle of being introspective. So what sort of mental frameworks do you use to be introspective, which helps you inform action? Right? Like, so that's what it's all about, right? It's like you be introspective so that your incentives are more aligned, so actions come easier, right? That's what I think, for me, it's been all about, right? So how do you go about introspection? Is this something, I know at this point it's probably natural to you, but what's your thought process when you're being introspective?
So is it like being reflective so then you can make decisions easier? Is like that kind of the question?
Yeah, let's start off with that. Because I think like, well, being introspective is just like a larger topic, right? So that can go many different ways. So I think some things you realize were innate about you like from a young age. So I noticed I always liked journaling when I was younger. I didn't always do it consistently, but when I had thoughts, I just had to pour it out. And I would like read some of my things from back then, and they're pretty silly, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, this boy didn't like me. Why does no one like me? I got a fair share of those too.
So I think that's sometimes that gets built up over time. That's actually a concept I was thinking about today, where like we sometimes think that in preparing for something, that when we say we're starting to prepare for it, it's like that 2 weeks. But actually the thing you are preparing for, you've been preparing for that in a way like your whole life via all the other experiences.
Well said.
So like if you want to become an introspective person, like I feel like we both are now, I think not only is it like if we try to become introspective in the past year, but it's like from little moments that built up over time that we didn't realize to become the person we are today. But so I think to make decisions more easily, honestly, I'm not that good at making decisions because I get a lot of FOMO. So I will my default is almost like saying yes, which I'm trying to be better about. I think I've improved a lot in the past year, hence the greater focus on the YouTube channel and why it's doing better.
Yeah.
So I think reading a few books helped. Reading is excellent. I always recommend that, especially when I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F Word. And he said and he said like, you don't feel bad about the things you miss when your values are strong, because then you just don't care about it. Because I was really tempted by, you know, making short form videos last year. And only after realizing, you know what, I care about long form way more. So like, even when I see other people jumping on the bandwagon like I did before, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm doing my own thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier about how you want your values and your incentives and your interests to be aligned so that you know what is the right action to take, because you know deep down like why you're doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you talk a lot about finding your why. Right? And I think a lot of finding your why is through being introspective. Right? And so you had talked about you journaling when you were younger. What does being introspective look like for you now? Like, is it still through journaling? Is it through like voice memos to yourself? Is it through Notes app?
Yeah, it's primarily through Notes app. I haven't taken time to really like sit down and be like, this is my reflective time. It's like in the shower, I think of something, I come out, I'm like,
dude, I'm the same exact. Like, I think I showed you this. I have like a notes page called mission statement, and I just like all my key realizations that I have about myself or the way that I want to live my life, I write down in there. Can you share a few of your notes?
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like that'd be pretty fun.
Okay.
Like, what is the most recent realize? Also, from reading that book, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, as well as like this guy, he's also a content creator. He does a lot of YouTube stuff, and he was on a podcast recently with Graham Stephan, which we were talking about earlier.
That's funny.
Iced Coffee Hour, great podcast. And so he, in that conversation, I had so many things that I had to write down because I thought it was so good. So great book. Great author, great content creator.
That's a great point. I think what I was going to say also about introspection is like to be self-aware and to take a step back to realize how you feel after consuming a type of content. So like a podcast, right? Like thoughts will come up in reaction to something you hear or see, because I think that's actually a better form of introspection than just sitting down and being like, I'm going to think. Because once you sit down and think, like, you don't have anything to react off of. You're just with yourself. But if you remember things in the past that were triggered by things you see, then that's a much easier way to like introspect.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's also something with like back to social media is like earlier last year, and even now sometimes I see girls who get like a lot of free stuff. And then my first reaction is like, oh, I want that. Like, oh, maybe I should like maybe I should make more lifestyle videos and like show clothes because I love clothes. But then I have to take a step back and be like, wait, I don't actually want this. It's just like the like more I don't want to say immature, but I can't think of the word. One book calls it the gator brain, which is like the more like the brain that wants the easier stuff. So then I have to take a step back and be like, oh, like I would not be happy myself doing that. I'm happier doing what I'm doing now, and then like I can just use my own money to buy that stuff. Well,
I think before we go into that, I think like a key thing there is, I don't know how you view it, but like that thought comes in where, oh, the other people are getting free stuff, I want free stuff, right? And so the reason why you ended up saying like, oh, you know what, like I rethinking it, going back is I'm assuming you asked why. Like, why do I want this free stuff? And I think that is like the first most important question. It's like when you want something, like, why do I want it? And then you keep asking why, and then you get closer and closer to your values and what you are actually looking for in this world. You get closer to your genuine self through asking why a bunch of times. And so that's my framework for being introspective. It's like if I think about something and like I feel bad about something, why do I feel bad about this thing? Well, I feel bad because of this reason. And like you just keep going down the rabbit hole and you realize deep down, like I'm insecure about one or two things.
That's true.
So that's my framework for introspection is why.
Yeah.
Why do I feel this way? And then I keep thinking about it until I find an answer, and that answer doesn't come until like sometimes years.
Yeah.
So like I write down I feel bad from this thing, and then a year later I'll be like, holy, like that's why I feel bad. I write it down.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
Right.
Or like you write something down, you read it a few years later, and you're like, that didn't matter that much, or like
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is also just somewhere I like dump my thoughts, but I think that's also a framework I use. I never like realized it or had it said so explicitly.
Right.
So thanks for sharing that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the way that we think about life is pretty similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I also like how when you ask yourself why, it's like that thing that I always tell my viewers to like be your own coach, because I think that you can improve so much faster if you're not relying on an external thing to tell you how to do better. Yeah. Like if you can, as a third party point of view, look at like look at how you're doing something and be like, if I was to tell my friend this, like what would I tell them? Really quick,
I do want to listen. I want to do this so badly, but I want to throw something out there too. Is I will like have these deep talks with friends, and they will mention a problem that they're having. And so I would say something like, oh, why do you feel bad about this thing? And they say, I don't know. And that's like often the first answer to anything that is a touchy subject. Like, why do I feel bad? I don't know. I just feel bad. Right? And that's the difference between those who are introspective and those who aren't. Is the one who are introspective can dive deeper into why I feel bad about something or why I feel good about something. So what I always tell my friends is I don't know is not a real answer, especially when it comes to things that are emotional and internal. Like if factual things, I don't know a lot of stuff. But when it comes to like, why do you feel bad? Like there's no real I don't know answer. It's you just haven't figured it out yet. Right. Yeah. So exactly. It's your job to figure out why you feel bad. I owe that to myself.
Exactly. And a lot of people I see in the comments too, they're like, I don't know why I can't get myself to study, or like, I don't know, I just hate studying. And I'm like, sometimes I really want to help everyone, but sometimes I like, only you can answer that. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And also I think that's why I can bring myself to do the things I don't like doing, because I think about what the big picture is, like what it's all for. That's also part of introspection too, and the why. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's dive in. I'm like super curious. I'll also share a few of mine too, but I have a lot of things that I'm just like genuinely curious what you've written about. Yeah. So, sometimes I write in very like short phrases. Where now I'm kind of like, okay. So this one seems like from a while ago, but I was like. From some experience, I said that consulting seems even more meaningless. As I sit in this meeting, sick from COVID, as we're talking about financial metrics, while we know another shooting has happened. That energy could be spent elsewhere. Like creating the metaverse seems so dumb when that energy could be spent on improving society and the environment. So that's a deep thing. Yeah. that's a deep thing you wrote there. Yeah. I have like a short thing that I like probably just threw on there. That was like an essay on. Yeah. I mean, the complexities of the world. Yeah. That wasn't like a values thing. Sometimes I write a lot of values thing here. I just landed on a random one, but sometimes I have ideas where like I would like to share this, but there isn't an appropriate place to share it, so I just like dump it on here. We can also get into consulting and the allure of consulting, but it's very ironic because Sean recently just got this amazing opportunity at a top tier consulting firm. But we can also dive deep into our takes on consulting. I do think it's right for a lot of people. It fits well with a lot of people. I think we're actually like a weirder kind of like archetype of person. But anyway. I want to talk about consulting and I want to talk about schools and like what you think. But, let me see. Any ones that like stand out to you? I guess like there are some lessons that I was thinking about from especially this past year that like we always want more, because I've discovered that ever since middle school, there was this Aeropostale t-shirt I wanted. And I just had to get, and I felt like if I got that, I don't want anything else. I'm cool now. And then later it was like, and then I was like, now I want a cool shirt. you know, like a fancier shirt than something that just has a logo.
Right.
In high school, college, and then even now, it's like, it's never enough, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's what I was realizing, that like, instead of, and like, even when I do get more stuff, it's exciting at first, but then the excitement dies off really quickly. And so that's when I realized, like, this is the way capitalism works, right? They always have to want you, they always want you to want more. Yeah. So I have to take a step back and realize, you know, what's more important, what's sustained contentment rather than always wanting more. Because if I see this other girl on Instagram, they have that, I will want that, but I will always want something more, even after I get that thing. So, that's something I realized, because, it also helps, so I, like, buy fewer things. Yeah.
It also, like, kind of goes back to the shiny object syndrome that you were talking about a little bit, right? This, like, constant desire for more and new. Yeah, exactly. I think it also relates to, you know, once we get out of college, because college tells you what to focus on, but in the real world, there's endless things you can consume, you can pursue, you can, like, see, right? Yeah. So we have to really introspect and think about our values, because we're just going to drive ourselves crazy otherwise. There's so much excess nowadays. Well, so how do you go about this sustained, like, you know, dopamine or, like, happiness, right? Like, so instead of chasing glamorous things, which, to be honest, like, content creation, a lot of feelings around that are very apparent, but there's also, like, you know, LA, Hollywood, like, anything related to content and film generally is very glamorous by nature. Also, like, being a content creator is the profession that everyone in Gen Z wants to be, and so a lot of shiny object syndrome associated with that. But how do you go about having this sustained, almost linear happiness? Because that's what it's all about. Like, that's what life is all about, right? So
so I think a big part is the why, but how we get there is that Cici Xie, who's, like, the lawyer TikToker, who was she actually wrote an article where she described something called, like, a certain type of achievement where it's, like, numeric, where, like, once you get the achievement, it's, like, over, versus another kind of pursuit where it's, like, always ongoing. So, like, creating a strong family is always ongoing. There's no end to it.
Oh, interesting.
And I feel like for a lot of high achievers, and, like, I feel like for us, sometimes we base our worth or, like, how successful we are off of those finite achievements that, like, end once we get them. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah, which is the same.
I love that.
Yeah, which is also the same thing when you buy something, because when you buy it, you got it. There's no next, unless, you know. Yeah. It's like, so, but then to twist it would be like, continued happiness would be like confidence in how you look, right? Or, like, there's no end to that.
I love that. Yeah. Well, is that how you felt when you got to Caltech? Like, well, I had worked really hard my entire life. I got to this amazing position. Like, I'm obviously very smart. Was there a moment of, like, well, I don't feel good after, like, the first semester, just because, like, I've achieved, like, I wanted this for so long, and now that I have it, like, what's the next thing?
Yeah, I think that for Caltech specifically, first of all, we were, like, too busy to really...
Okay, gotcha.
But I do think that there was already the next thing to work on. The next big achievement. The next milestone, like the job, right? Like 4 years later. Yep. Yeah. So that's why I think a lot of new grads also feel the sense of being lost. Because now you have the job. Hopefully it's a good one. And then you're like, what's next? Right? Yeah. And then with shiny object syndrome that you're touching on with content creation, I think a lot of people start content creation simply wanting to do content creation. But why I started was because I had mission before I wanted to make content. Content was just the tool to make it happen. Because when I saw influencers before I had a following, I was like, dang, these people have power or influence. Right. And I was like, if I had that, I would do good things with it. I want that, so I can do good things with it. So that's what sustains me, where this thread continues. There's no end to helping people, you know. So it doesn't end when I'm at 100K subscribers. It doesn't end at 500K,
right.
you know.
Right. Oh, it's so, I love that. This other content creator called Justin Kahn, I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's the co-founder of Twitch.tv. So he's in the entrepreneurial startup space. I'm into that space as well. Yeah. And he talks about this thing called the hedonic treadmill, which you should totally look into, which is essentially like what we were just talking about, this whole entire concept of chasing the next goal that society places upon us. Like, our goals are get into a good school, get a good job, like, whatever, like, have a certain number of kids, have this much income. Those are all benchmarks that society and culture and family place upon us, but not goals that we place upon ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the idea is those who are truthfully happy in life are those who escape the hedonic treadmill and then find their own metrics of success and follow that.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult because our entire lives, we don't know anything besides what other people tell us.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So I was just thinking about that as you were talking there.
For sure. Yeah, that's amazing that you heard about hedonic treadmill.
Super cool stuff.
And that, this is why we should always try to consume content where we're learning and broadening our own awareness, because you can only really escape, I think, like, once you're aware you can escape, or like once you're aware that the treadmill is a thing, then you can be like, oh, there is a way out, or like or like it's not something you have to do. Because if I didn't read the book that changed my viewpoint, Millionaire Fastlane, then I wouldn't know why I'm so sad all the time. Like, when I was in the first few months of my consulting job, I was sad, and I was like, I'm being such a brat. Why? like I literally have a good job after college when many people might not even have jobs. Like, why am I so sad? And like, I was like, that's so wrong. I was like, that's wrong of me, But it's not wrong of you to feel sad. Yeah. So how did you overcome that? Yeah, so I read Millionaire Fastlane, and in one of the chapters, he was describing how, like, is this you? Like, you come home from work and you feel so, like, empty inside, and I'm like, that's me! Yeah, and then it was really amazing because then he described how actually the 9-to-5 job and investing is not as stable as one might think, because you're not in control of any of that. You're not in control of the stock market. You're just a number to your employer. Like, you can be laid off at any point, which we've been seeing recently, actually. Yeah. And so, why not put some of your energy into building your own brand or business that can sustain itself? And then, in a way, your own business is actually more stable and something you can trust in more. And so when I realized that, I was like, that's amazing, because it gives you the courage to pursue that route that everyone told you was way more risky. Because turns out it's not that much riskier, if at all, right? If you can, if you're like hardworking and you have enough, resources. So that's when I was like, oh, this is an option now. There's an alternative. So that was like my way out. That made me feel so much better. I always have this like internal battle, and I totally agree with you. I want to build my own brand. I want to create my own company. Like, I want to do my goal is to create my own VC firm within the next few years. But it's hard. It's a lot of hard work. Yeah. And some people are not wired to do hard work. Like, they want a different life for themselves that consists of the 9-to-5. You come home, you watch TV, and you just do it every day. Because that's structure. And it's routine and it's comfort. And this kind of goes back to like what our relationship with our old friends is, that like I can't stand that. I can't stand that idea that 9-to-5, like I'm someone else's, like I'm a disposable piece for someone else. Exactly. And then I have to come home and recharge to then again be a disposable piece for someone else. Like, as a concept, I really didn't like that. But doing your own thing is scary. It is exhausting. It is a whole bunch of things that test every part of your conscious and your ego. Yes. And so
I just want to throw out a caveat is like this sort of mindset I think is helpful for those who feel lost, but it's okay to feel like very happy, being part of this larger machine. I think mission is very important as well, though. It's like the machine that you're working for needs to be moving towards a vision that you align with, that you agree with, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a really good point. It's like our perspectives here are not to influence people to think like us,
right,
but it's to help people who maybe after hearing this, they're like, oh, I actually like that and I resonate with it. And if you're content doing the routine, the comfort work, like all the power to you. Right. But I think it's important to be introspective and be like, am I actually happy in this routine, or am I just in it because it's comfortable? Because you don't want to regret it 40 years down the line, right? Because that's one of the things that really drives me too, is I don't want to regret things.
Yeah. Oh man, I am loving this. I'm loving this. So what is the thing that would give you regret? So what would have to happen for you to be, or rather maybe let's flip it to the other side. It's like in 30 to 40 years, what needs to happen for you to be like very fulfilled with how you've lived your life? Yeah. Right, so we were talking about, really quickly, we were talking about mission and what you wanted to build with this channel, right? It wasn't about brand deals. Like it was about like you had this larger mission. So what is that mission for you? Yeah, so I think that even when I was in high school and middle school, I realized that the education system has a lot of things that could be better, because I think that even like the peers around me, I see that they have a lot of potential, right? Just like I see with my viewers, right? That like they literally want to improve themselves, but it's really hard to, because first of all, like we said, not everyone around them is like that. And school often does not teach them the mindsets, right? And it's like, they think of school as something they're forced to do rather than like why they want to do it. So I think through this channel, I want to really just help the next generation be who they can be. Because that's also something with me too. Like I don't want to waste any potential. And I think that me finding this path now, as I think right now, like maybe this wouldn't be what I do in 10 years, but as of now, I think this is a path where I really enjoy this, and I want to see that I left a legacy on education and in students in particular. That I tried this, and I didn't like, and I would be regretful if I had been too distracted by like brand deals or like influencer stuff, right? Which is honestly like a weekly battle, because that's what you see on social media. That's what gets glorified, right? And like there's so many girls just showing off how pretty they are. Like they are pretty and they are making content that's like entertaining, but at the end of the day, like who am I? And that was actually my mantra for 2023. Like every time I started being distracted or wanting to stray from the path, I would go back to my mantra, like who I am, like not who they are. I love that. Yeah. Wow. There's so many things once again that I want to touch on here. So you started talking about the education system, and really quickly, I want to like echo all those points. Is that the school system, especially elementary school, middle school, high school, it's in like this school mantra, like as in like in the textbooks that like the school is like the mission of the school is to make sure that no one's left behind. That's the whole concept of school. And so what that does is that puts people who are really talented in really tough spots, because they can't grow, because the school is focusing all their energy on making sure no one's left behind, right? And so what happens here is that a lot of really bright, high IQ students end up having a really tough time once they get to high school, because they haven't developed study habits, because they rely on their raw intellect. Right? And that's something that happened to me. Like I got killed in high school because I had relied on my raw intellect for even to this day. But I'm not saying that I'm super smart. I've just been able to, pick up things very easily. And then once I couldn't do that, it was all about hard work. I had a really tough time transitioning. And so what's really interesting here is there were some studies done with like depression rates and high IQ. And there's like a pretty strong correlation between, having high IQ and like being more depressed, or like developing bad habits. And because these school systems aren't for those people. So what a lot of psychiatrists and like Harvard studies say is that like really smart, talented kids are special needs. Like they deserve special needs because they're like as in like they deserve a different set of education than other people too, right? Just as though like there's special needs for lower education people, like or people that don't have that raw intellect. Anyway, what I'm getting at is the systems that we grew up in are not set up for our individual success sometimes, right? Yeah. So it's important to recognize that and do what you can within the system that we're in to make sure you personally grow the most. It's like having ownership over your own growth is like a super important skill to have.
For sure. But that's really freaking hard for teenagers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's insanely hard. Like, I don't think I really thought about self-growth that much in high school. I think I was just like, I had a few goals. I was like, straight A's, you know. Yeah. Do well in tennis. I wanted abs.
Well, so why did you want those things?
So I think straight A's is like part of my identity where like, you know, I think having this increases my chance of success later in life for a good college and things like that. I felt like that was like a non-negotiable, right? Got it. Like it was like a default. Things like doing well in tennis, like I think I always set challenges for myself where like if I do something, I want to work as hard as I can at it and just see how far I can go. For abs, I was like, well, abs look good and like I feel like and I was like, you know, I feel like I'm someone who works hard and goes to get whatever I want. And so if this is something I want and everyone wants it, like why don't I go get it? That'd be pretty cool. I was like, I was like, oh, you know, that'd be pretty cool. You know, just having it. It's not like I would be like in a swimsuit all day, but it's like I know I did that, you know. Yeah. And it like feels good to me that it's a visual sign of my hard work. Right.
Interesting. So you enjoy the feeling of working hard to get to a goal.
Yeah. And I do think that like in high school and college, like before reading these self-improvement books and things like that, in a way I was more content because ignorance is bliss. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was just like, I'm gonna do these classes, do the homework, like check mark, done. Yeah. Then like sometimes after school when I have these all done, I did watch a show with my sister sometimes because I'm like, why not? You know. Yeah. And it's like I feel like I wasn't thinking that much about what could be out there, which is I think a good thing sometimes because I think kids should be kids. Sometimes. Yeah. Like I think oh, this is so ironic, but I'm thinking too much now all the time. Yeah,
I feel you. Yeah. Well, you also have more on your plate and more things to worry about. Like when you're a kid, like once again, we were talking about like what society dictates as successful, right? And so we just have like this vision for what success is, and we're all trying to attain that. Yeah. And then so once you grow out of that system, the idea of what is successful changes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and in school, it's like if you get A+, that's the upper limit. You can't do more. But it's like here in the real world, we can work all day, all night if we want to, and we can keep getting higher and higher.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess like looking back, let's say you were to, I just love this question in general, but if you were to write a letter to yourself, like maybe in the middle of high school or maybe even like before high school, what would you write about? Knowing all the things that you know now, like, you know, you're very introspective, you know what you do now very well, and you're very good at it. What would you write about?
I feel like it's a very interesting question because, you know, the butterfly effect. So, it would change my past self, which in turn would change all the course of my events now. But ignoring that time travel stuff, I feel like I would tell myself to just try more things I am genuinely curious about because I never considered learning to dance, and like I could have done that, and it was just never an option or a possibility that occurred to me. And now I enjoy it, and I'm like, oh well, I had more time as a kid, I could have done that more, you know. And I think just to try creating more because before elementary school, I would make like houses for my dolls out of cardboard boxes. Jeez. And I think somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle with school, that creativity got lost.
so that creativity got lost because you were focused on getting grades?
Yeah, I
or
think...
getting abs? Like,
I think that in school, I just thought that this was it. Like, I'm getting good grades, I'm doing extracurriculars, getting to college. Like, there's nothing else I could be trying right now.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
I don't even think that was an occurrence to, like, try being creative and do things for fun that are more hobbies. Like, my extracurriculars were, like, basketball, tennis, to do well in them. And fun was watching a show with my sister. You know?
Well, now that I think about it, though, that sounds pretty great. Like, it sounds like as in simpler times.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
yeah, I'm like thinking about my old self, like, not much going on up there. But actually, at one point in high school, maybe it was junior year, I realized, like, I had a ton of stuff on my planner that week for things I had to do. I had, like, 3 exams, like a bunch of projects, like tennis matches, and I was like, dang, how am I gonna get through this? But then I wasn't very stressed about it. What's interesting is, like, I never really got that stressed. And then I was like, I should write a book. And I was like, I'm gonna write a book called How to School Better. Terrible title.
Wow. Wait, how old were you when you did this again?
I think like junior year of high school.
Wow, okay.
So
you're already doing this sort of stuff. I love that.
So it's kind of like a hint to, like, now where it's like, at that moment, I realized, maybe I have some techniques where I think that someone else might be really stressed looking at this planner, but I'm actually not too stressed. I feel like I can tackle it because I have the foundation set and different kinds of mindsets. So I think that's one thing that I thought about slightly entrepreneurial. Yeah. It's like something escaped a little bit, but it got like suppressed back in when I had to write college apps.
Oh, that's so interesting. It's so, like, clear to me that you were meant to do this. Like, you like everything, like, looking back, all the values and interests and hobbies are aligned with what you're doing now. And that's probably why you're so successful. So maybe for those listening out there, if the key to being successful is aligning all these different aspects of your life, which is, like, you know, your values, your interests, and what you deep down genuinely love to do. And so whatever you do, don't suppress those genuine feelings. Try to go explore them as much as you can. And that's probably what I would tell my younger self. So, like, let's see, I've actually been very fortunate to have parents that were very, like, open to me exploring things. They really actually pushed me to go explore things. And so I think because of that, I've found a lot more clarity in my life. I think, like, the first step is you have to figure out what you know and what you don't know, right? And then figure out ways to experience more of the world so that you just have more knowledge and can make better decisions based off that knowledge that are good for you, right? So, like, a lot of it is trial and error. And so what it sounds like to me is you did a lot of trial and error, like, a lot of it. And I think that's super important for those out there. Definitely trial and error. Yeah,
for sure. That's cool. We're so similar.
Yeah.
And
we also like picking up new things. I think that's another big thing. So so my whole goal for 2023, so now it's 2024, just turned 2024. My goal for 2023 was to get comfortable being bad at things. So I grew up, like I mentioned a little earlier, like I considered myself pretty smart. I didn't have to study for a lot of things. And that created really bad habits for me. I couldn't study. I didn't want to study. If I wasn't good at something, I quit. Right? Because I was so used to being good at things that if I wasn't good, I'd just quit. And that's, like, terrible for any aspect of adult life. And so I spent 2023 training myself to be good at being bad, if that makes sense. Yes, it does. And that was exhausting, but I learned a lot about myself in that experience. And I'm not really sure where I'm getting with that, but I just wanted to share, like, 2023 was a lot of learnings in that sense, and also all good things take time. Like, those are my 2 big lessons from 2023.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that because so many people get comfortable studying the things they're already good at or doing the things they're already good at, and it's really hard to admit to yourself that you're bad at this because, you know, when you are good at something, you want to do it more. and that's how you get better.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
But
exactly.
like, you can't get good at something without being bad at it first.
Yeah.
And you know, being in school, I think I was kind of used to sometimes, you know, also doing well. Like I knew how to get an A. In most cases. But when I had to start a YouTube channel, I knew nothing. And so that was some unknown territory, but it was also fun to be like bad at it. But like, it's extremely hard and disheartening because when you're bad at it, you can just say, I'm going to quit now. Right. Because there are no signs from the universe telling me to keep going. Right. Yeah.
I also think that if when you're bad at something and you can see yourself getting a little bit better each day, like when you first start something out, you're generally going to be bad at it. Yeah. But the feeling of getting better really quickly is actually really inspiring to me. The feeling of like incrementally getting better every week. Yeah. And so I tried to program myself. That sounds like pretty robotic, but like I wanted to rewire my mind to fall in love with that feeling of getting better at things. Yeah. Because that's what life is all about. Exactly. It's like finding things to get better at and then getting better at those things and like exploring more. Yeah. To me at least. That's how I want to live my life.
Yeah. It's that growth mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about your consulting experience. Okay. Because you were saying like how you had these moments, like almost like existential moments. You're like, what am I doing with my time? There's so much more that the world needs. But consulting is like the most glamorous, like loved job for really high ambitious college and high school kids. So what was that experience like, you know, going into it being so excited because everyone wants this thing. It's been like hyped up for years in my mind, and then you get it and you're like, man, this is like, it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, what's wild is recently I read that actually about 70% of Harvard students and Yale students want to do something like consulting or investment banking, which is pretty, pretty ironic.
That's a lot.
Yeah, pretty ironic because I think a lot of high schoolers think about how you get into Harvard. Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Okay, one more.
Okay. No worries.
We're good.
Okay.
Actually, but can I refill my water?
Yeah, you can get some water.
Also, I want to make sure that like we're hitting all the topics that you want to hit.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think everything's going really well. It's all coming out naturally, just like I thought it would. Yeah.
I think like this consulting topic is just so interesting because it's one of those things that it's like the shiny a lot of things are like shiny object syndrome, but it's fun to like have someone relate to that experience of like actually having a miserable time doing
it's a good case study for you know, chasing something in life but that not actually being what you want. But yeah, like for the Harvard Yale students wanting to do consulting or investment banking, it's funny because I think a lot of high schoolers think about, in order to get into those schools, you have to play yourself off as someone who wants to change the world, who wants to make it a better place.
That is so funny. Yeah, sorry, continue. That is very ironic. No, I love where you're going with this.
Yeah, but in consulting and investment banking, you're just feeding into what capitalism.
You're a PowerPoint monkey.
Yeah, helping rich people get richer, right? Yeah. That's what I found out recently. But when I was still interested in it, I think that first of all, I want to caveat that I don't regret it at all, because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't know. I would probably be like, oh, I wish I tried that. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think the reason I picked it was because I thought it was a good launching pad for anywhere else I go later, and I wanted to build soft skills. I wanted to get exposure to different industries. It's kind of a cop-out where you don't have to pick what you want to do in life yet. You just do something where you know it's good enough and you can try a lot of other things. Right. But then, you know, people played it to me like, oh, the learning curve is so big, blah, blah, blah. What I found in the first few months, I was like, I'm just being a monkey. Yeah. And I was like, you know, maybe it's just because I'm an analyst, right? But I think that the ratio of learning to work was not satisfactory. That was the main thing. And also I realized, like, in school, when you put in effort or you do tasks, typically the purpose is to learn. And that was like the value you get, plus the promise that what you're building is going to help you later in life or help other people in life, you know, because it's building your human capital. But in doing tasks for consulting, I felt like the hours were challenging, some things were challenging, but much of the value in doing the tedious tasks was simply the money. And at one point, money is not the best form of value.
Right.
Yeah, because time is more valuable.
Absolutely.
And consulting and investment banking are extremely time consuming.
Yeah. Well, you were also like waking up at like 5 a.m. for some of it, right?
Yeah.
I think I watched your video.
Yeah.
Where, like, you take consulting calls after waking up at 5 a.m. like working out. That's exhausting.
Yeah. I try to be very like disciplined and like reading and everything on top of consulting, which is also why I didn't like it so much, because I couldn't do the other things I valued in life.
You were also creating content, right? So
jeez,
yeah.
So the fact that I was creating content while doing consulting just made the juxtaposition even more obvious. That like this consulting gives me this while creating gives me this, and so it was more like that's also something that made me like consulting even less.
Well, so going into college, was your dream to be a consultant? Or like
No.
what was... Well, actually, now I'm just curious. Like, so growing up, okay, can you go through your dream jobs? Like your dream aspirations?
Okay, in elementary school, I wanted to be a teacher.
Wow.
And so I actually did silly school for my sister. I'm sure she... she actually liked it because she doesn't know what she was doing. She was just listening to me. But as she got older, at one point she was like, I don't like this. Why am I like learning something, you know? At one point, your younger siblings start to not trust you as much, and you can't boss them around as much.
Yeah, that's true.
But so there's that, and then I really don't think I had any dream job. I think it was just like I'll figure it out.
Got it.
As I get accolades, as I get good grades, I'll figure it out. And I think people say like, oh, what's the point of school? Why do I have to learn like calculus? I think in a way, learning all the different subjects in school is also just giving you exposure to what you could like and what you could like to
absolutely.
do. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I even in college, I didn't know what job I wanted. I just knew I was picking chemical engineering, and it would give me exit opportunities.
Well, so you chose chemical engineering for the sake of easier opportunities post-college.
Yeah, and also I liked math and chemistry. So,
okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, but I talked about I talked about in one of my videos that that's actually not a good reason for picking a major. Like, you don't want to pick the major just because you like the subjects. You actually have to consider what the jobs are after that. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I did bioengineering, and I came into my college as an entrepreneurship major because I really wanted to make my own. That was my whole application. It's like I had made a med device company when I was 16, and I really liked the idea of entrepreneurship and growing businesses. And honestly, well, for me, the college application process was really freaking humbling.
Really?
Really humbling. Yeah, because for some context, I went to this, posh, sort of elite private high school in Brooklyn. And so everyone there was going to Stanford and Princeton and Harvard, and I felt like I could go punch for punch with all those people, right? I had like some pretty insane extracurriculars as well, and like, I mean, you definitely did a lot more than I did, but things like
not guaranteed.
I really leaned into taking all like the hardest math and science courses there, and led math club, chess club, entrepreneurship club, did all those things, the tennis as well. I was very active, and I thought I could compete with all of the top college talent or top high school talent going into college, and one after another, I kept taking L's from these colleges, and I remember feeling so upset. My ego took a huge hit. Yeah. And we were talking about this like off screen, but I spent my first semester in Greece. And when I went to Greece, in my suitcase, I had packed specialized SAT, what's it called again? Like the SAT books that are not for general SAT, but like this specialized SAT, like SAT Chem.
Like subject test.
Subject test, that's right. So I had the SAT subject test textbooks that I brought, which are super heavy and like super thick. I brought them to Greece to study and take the test again so I could transfer out of the school before even going into the school. Right? So like I was so set on transferring because I thought I was better than this. And I ended up making some great friends and having like the best time of my life. We were also talking off screen how that semester in Greece was the best time of my life. But I remember struggling really deeply, and I had a lot of like my ego just took a big hit. But at the end of the day, I had a lot of self-confidence. I thought, and as cocky as this may sound, I think I'm talented. Like I think I have every right to be in any given room. And so who cares if a school doesn't want me? Like I'm gonna be the one that wins at the end.
I love that.
That's like my take on it.
No, I love that. And I don't think we should consider that cocky at all. I think it's also, again, like the definitions that society throws upon us.
Right.
I think that's just confidence. That's knowing who you are because you worked hard. You've seen what you can do. So you should think you're talented because you are, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, colleges are honestly a shot in the dark. Like I was very confident too. For some reason, I was like pretty sure I'd get into Stanford, which like you should never be sure you're going to get into Stanford. But I thought I did everything right. I thought I did more than the guy who did end up getting to Stanford.
That's what stings. It's this comparison thing.
Yeah.
That's what really, really hurts the most. It's like, I'm better than that guy.
Yeah,
come on.
exactly.
How'd that happen?
Right, yeah. But they don't collude and be like,
Yeah. That's right.
But the college thing is really interesting because, well, while name helps a little bit, but in the end it's still like who you are and like what you do. Right. So like what is your take on like how important the name brand is after your experience? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people growing up, their goal is to get into these really great schools, and they place their self-worth on their ability to get into these great schools. And I mean, that's natural. And I'm just saying it's difficult. it's difficult if it doesn't work out the way that you want it to work out. But it's a really good chance to reevaluate what you define as success. And so once I got to campus, my whole idea on school completely shifted. I was like, schools don't really, in my mind, this might sound terrible, but like schools don't really know what they're doing. They're here to provide you an experience, and it's your job to make that experience tailored to you. And you can get the best experience out of any college, no matter what the name is. But it's on you. Like it's your responsibility to make sure you make the most out of this time. And so I like to think that I made the most of that time. So now that I think about it, it didn't matter where I went, right? It mattered that I made the most of my time there. And that's sort of how I view life now in general. So whether I work at some prestigious bank or consulting also like helped me define that or have that realization. Like it's not about the role, it's about like growing and making the most of your time there. And so is consulting making the most out of my time? Oh, no, not at all. I didn't feel that way. I was like, man, I'm just moving slides or like the content within a PowerPoint slide, a couple pixels here and there. Like that was a big part of my job. I got to travel, and there was one moment I specifically remember, which we had talked about a little bit, but I was in this room with the CFO of a company that was about to go public, and then my boss for my consulting project. And we were in this room, we were discussing strategy, and we were just saying so many big words that had no meaning. And my main job was to take notes for this meeting. And like the end of the hour-long meeting, the one takeaway was like, we have to have another meeting to like revisit these topics. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, so, and the funniest part is like, they flew us out for that conversation. Like they paid for our lunch. And I was like, this is just not the best use of my time. Once again, no regrets. I'm glad I experimented and tried that thing out. But if you're thinking that consulting is like the dream, ask yourself why. Like, why is it the dream? Right? And keep diving deeper into that, and then we can obviously have these perspectives because we've done it. So
Yeah.
Go do it and find out for yourself. Maybe it is for you.
Exactly.
Right?
Trial and error again. And yeah, I don't know. Apparently, a couple of my coworkers watch my like live stream. So like, in case they listen to this, I just want to say, you know, if you like consulting, right? That's amazing. Again, like if you like something, that's amazing.
Yes,
We're only sharing our perspective because we have a certain. Everyone has different personalities, different preferences, and I also like how you said, you know, to make the most of whatever situation you're in.
Yeah.
Because that also aligns with your growth, like how you really prioritize growth. Yeah. Because only when you try and reach the upper limit of something can you go higher.
That's right. Yeah.
You know.
Well, so how do you? What's your thought process on making the most out of your time? It's like why. You didn't think that consulting was fulfilling because of the actual day-to-day work or the mission, or like why, what clicked in your mind that this was not a good use of my time? Yeah. Because for some people, like their priorities are money. Yeah. And they think this is a great use of my time because I'm making money.
Yeah, yeah. One day I spent the whole day at the office searching people on LinkedIn, putting them in a spreadsheet. And once you do that for 9 hours...
Dude, yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, I came home and I just like started crying and I was like, I was so upset because I also am someone who thinks I have something to offer to the world, and this was not it. You know, so I think number one was indeed the day-to-day task. Ironically, me enumerating this is like, oh, like a consultant. Number one, and number two, it was the overall impact as well, where like we are helping companies, but I think I want to help people, you know, and more directly. And also I wanted to have a stake or like be part of something, because when you're a consultant, you're helping an external party, and when that project's over, like it's over, like you help them, okay, you move on. And even if you help your own company, like you are an internal consultant for Google, right? Yeah. Like, sure, you help it. At least you can see it continue on, right? Right. But it's still not really something for yourself. Yeah. So with consulting, it was just 2 degrees away, where that I didn't see that building anything for me. Yeah. And just as a bonus for jobs in general, like in my consulting job, there was this project where there was this pretty complicated data thing to do. So I knew how to code in Excel. So I brought that talent there. And I actually stayed up that night by choice making this code when I could have done it maybe some tedious way. Right. And so I made this so then you could easily automate it and replicate it for other situations. And that was like pretty obviously like above and beyond. Right. And I presented this to the client, myself as an analyst, to a group from the client, and I didn't even have anyone else from my company. I was the only one there. Nice. And then later on, I also presented this to my entire firm in like a team meeting. So I did this cool thing, right? Yeah. But did I get a bigger bonus? No. Did I get promoted? No. Like, sure, I know like it could be a good letter of recommendation, like there are other benefits from that, but I was just like, what if I put my creativity, my talent in the way I'm thinking, and my work ethic into something that's my own? Wouldn't I more directly get benefits from that? And so that's kind of why I was so excited to pour so much effort and time into YouTube.
Wow. Yeah. That's a great story. And like I think like the thread that, you know, shines through is this idea of like you like to have ownership over what you're doing. Right? And it goes back to when you work hard for a result. Like that's also part of consulting. You worked hard to get like a good result, but you want to have ownership over the hard work. You want to like you don't want someone to tell you what to work hard on. Yeah, yeah. Like, and you want to have ownership of the results and the reward from that result.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's why I like school too, because once I got that A, that's my A.
Yeah, yeah.
And also my dad is really smart, I think, from what I can see. And he had several patents where he told me stories of how he created those patents, and it was like he got results above and beyond what anyone else could do, right? And he didn't get any benefits except for a plaque, maybe, like, oh, this is your patent. He just made money for the company. And I was like, dang, like, if he had put that energy into his own startup or something, that would be amazing. Which, like, I know why he couldn't, because it's more risky, and, like, we are an immigrant family, right? But learning from that was like, okay, well, maybe I'm in a position to try and do that now.
This might be a little off topic, but now that I think about content creation and YouTube, even though, like, your hard work is in your control, but your success may not necessarily really be in your control. It's based off the viewers, right? So, like, and as an aspiring content creator who will be posting a good amount when I go on travel, I'm, like, really curious about the balance between, how do I put this? It's like you're trying to grab attention and please other people, which means that, like, in turn, your results are not really based off of you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, like, you're like praying that the algorithm, like, picks up your video. Let's say if you're, like, really, really new. I'm sure that's what happens a lot to a lot of new creators. And so, I don't know, I just think it's, like, an interesting contradiction almost.
Yes.
It's like, I don't know what your takes on that are. I'm just kind of spitballing, but it's something I was just thinking about.
No, I agree. So even though I think my flow was in creating things, like, this did not come naturally to me at all. Just because I like it and I think this is my thing now doesn't mean it was easy or natural. It was very, very hard. And I think that it is contradictory, because when I was doing it, throughout the process before I had the big growth recently, I had many moments where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and, like, even, like, again, crying, because I was like, I'm putting in all this time and energy and not getting results. This is not what I've been used to my whole life, of, like, hard work relatively correlates to results. And what I've learned is that YouTube is, like, the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think that I had to take a different approach, where the hard work would be to understand how human psychology works. You know, it's like the hard work has to be put in different avenues of serving other people in a strategic way. And it has to be, and I put in a lot of effort to watching YouTube advice and learning from other people, because there's literally no mentors out there. Like, you can only talk to another YouTuber once you've already become a YouTuber. That's the only way they'll reply to you.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only way
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the only way they'll reply to you. So my hard work would be, like, I realize how the algorithm does work to some extent, right? So essentially, even though Mr. Beast says that you can replace the word algorithm with audience, the algorithm does kind of analyze the kind of content you make. So if you make study videos and those are doing well, they will put your content in front of more people who want to watch study videos. So just because you put in the same or more effort into a fitness video, sure, that's more effort, right? But it's not going to give you more results, because the algorithm recognizes you as a study channel. So they're going to put that fitness video in front of people who like to study, and then that video is not going to perform as well because of the click-through rate.
Got it. Okay. And so there was a point in which you had changed your brand a little bit, right? Like, from before study stuff, you were doing more lifestyle. I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Maybe I'm wrong here, but
yeah, I was doing some vlogs. I did a consulting day in the life.
And once you switched to study tips, you saw massive growth in the channel.
Yeah, I think that was a big combination of multiple factors. One, I am pretty good at studying, or, like, not studying, because I think when people think of studying, they think, like, heads down, like, brainless, like, robot, right? But I think being strategic and creative at doing well in school, and the ways I approach doing good well in school are also how I think we can excel at life. And then so I could talk about that pretty naturally and bring like, inspiration, honestly, to students who need the inspiration, because often they're just told, do X, Y, Z, steps 1, 2, 3. And then number 2, study tips are something where I think people will always want them, because students, it's hard, like we mentioned, for students to think for themselves sometimes, to be that external coach for themselves. So they sometimes will be a little desperate and like look for help. When they got a bad grade, they'll maybe Google something. You know, when they are procrastinating, they'll look up how to stop procrastinating, how to like studying. So there's always a need there. And number 3, I think like there is some direct impact you make where once you help someone, they'll trust you. And that means you gave value into their life, where the next time they get that A, they will kind of attribute that to you. So then they'll come back. And I think that relates to maybe why you were saying that my comments are really positive. I think it's not only, I think I see a lot of positive comments in general on study channels, but I think the reason for mine especially is because like I really, really do care about their literal results. Like the metrics by how I think a video is good is not necessarily by like retention or engagement or like the little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that I think will go viral. But I measure the how good my video is by how well I think it can actually get a student results. Wow. Like I try to say things. Thank you. I try to say things where like I'm like really, really try these tips and like add one at a time. That's why I say that, because I want them to really try and get results. You know. So yeah, that's kind of how my approach was. And yeah, so it's like kind of a niche where I can more naturally do. And it kind of goes into productivity and self-growth, which I evidently care about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super apparent that you really do care about the success of the A team, right? And that's probably why people keep coming back. And I know I'm just kind of spitballing once again, but what about like if someone says they did poorly because of like this study tip like made me forget this one line and then that caused me to not have a good grade? Like, do you get hateful comments as well?
So I think I do get a few, not really like hateful where like they tried something and it didn't work. But sometimes there are trolls, right? But I think that if someone were to comment that they tried something and it didn't work, like it's not like I'm the Bible or like
right.
It's not like everything I do is right. I think that I'm sharing new ideas that haven't been heard before. And what I also tell my viewers is that you should try and take inspiration from any video you watch and customize it to yourself. And what I say is what works for me, and I think will work for the majority of people.
Gotcha.
But it's not a guarantee because it's not a one-on-one tutoring session. Yeah, so I think that just to like kind of see the big picture and not be like, oh no, I have to please every single person. Because that's what I realized too. If you try and please everyone, you'll please no one.
So do what's right by you, and you want to please the people, the specific target audience that you're going for.
Yeah, and I have to be careful where like, you know, I am serving an audience, but I can't let serving one specific person like affect what I really believe in, right? If like that person says this doesn't work for you, that won't make me be like, I don't believe in my tip anymore, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so, you know, taking a step back, what's the vision for the channel and for what you're building? Let's say we're just starting 2024. Good chance to think about vision. And future.
So I think as of now, the channel has a lot of room to grow still. Because even reaching like 100K, it's still continually growing. And I think that it hasn't reached its highest potential yet. So it's just to grow that way first. Because as numbers grow, like a natural side effect that is good is like there is more monetary benefit. Which is like, we talked about how money's not a good like not the best value. But you need money.
You need money to sustain living.
Yeah. And I need money to be able to continue doing this. Because it has been a little stressful, to be honest, because like Sean's in his MBA, which is pretty pricey. And like I wouldn't be making as much like as consulting. Right? I haven't been making as much as from consulting. From YouTube, that is. So yeah, that's the goal, to be like more financially comfortable to be able to continue doing this thing. You know, so.
And that's also tough too, because monetization generally comes from sponsors, and having a lot of sponsors generally dilutes brand. From what I've understood. Yeah. So it's like a really interesting balance there as a content creator.
Yeah. So right now, I'm really trying to be super picky about sponsors already. Where I make sure it's something I really like and I actually think it's helpful to my audience. And that's why I'm like, I want to grow the channel more, where then I can continue taking very few sponsorships, but for each one they'll pay me more, you know. So it's like more worth my time, because I also find I'm not the best at fitting sponsorships in sometimes. And I just because then it's also like you have to listen to someone else. It's like a client again, and I'm like, I just want to make my own video, you know.
Oh, I got you. Oh, interesting. I love that. 2024, and I guess like not resolutions, because I know as a concept that's not how resolutions work. What are some things that you want to practice this year? Or things that you practice or you want to get good at or you want to learn how to do, or values you want to impart on yourself. So I think I'll go first really quickly. It's like the I think like I consider myself pretty confident, but I have a lot of room to grow in terms of confidence. And so I want to end this year being like unbelievably confident, like chest out, like I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I think a lot of my life has been trying to please other people, and my confidence comes from external factors. And I want to remove that. I want confidence to come from within. And I know that's a long process, but I want to get a good chunk of it out this year. That's my goal.
You think your trip will contribute to that?
Absolutely. I have a bunch of like things that I want to do to make me more confident on the trip. Things like shooting my shot with random people on the street, and like recording myself in public takes a lot of confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
Just putting myself in positions where I would be a little uncomfortable, I think that builds confidence for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think about like shooting yourself in the street too, like with a camera. It sounds kind of weird. Like when you film yourself, it's also like how can you live your best life without caring about other people? Right. It's like you have one life, right? So live like, you know, like you're the main character.
Yeah, exactly. Like glamorize your own life, like romanticize is a better word. Like it's your life, like don't live anyone else's. And that's another big thing that I learned this year is so I'm currently also getting a master's degree in engineering management, and that is in big part because my parents are making me, and they're supporting me financially for it, which is great, but it's not something that I want to do. It doesn't align with any of my career goals nor passions. And so I'm doing it for them because they've put in so much work for me. But I understand that doing this degree is living their life. It's not living my life. And so I made that abundantly clear to them. And like I'm very like snarky about it, to be honest. So sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening. And they know that I'm snarky about it. And so live my own life. Live it to the fullest. Like this sounds super cliche. So ultimately get unshakable confidence. And I think the world opens up after you have that confidence.
For sure. Confidence would be definitely at the top of my list of like traits that determine one's success. Oh my gosh, you asked so many good questions about me, and I wanted this to be more about you. So
really?
Listen, but it's okay. I'll because you have this like 6-month trip, right? What are all the thoughts running through your head right now, like goals and like where you feel like you are in life right now, just so like when you come back, you know, what if something changes?
Oh, let me think. I actually haven't had the time to think about really quickly. I want to throw this out there.
Okay.
And when we talk, there's a lot of moments of like, oh, I was reading this thing recently, or like a lot of like segues are like, oh, I was just thinking about this the other day. And that's how you know you have two like really introspective people, is that they're always thinking about something. And so when I talk to my parents and I'd use those like segues, like, oh, I was just thinking about this recently. Like, do you ever like sit down and just zone out? And like somehow like me, like I enjoy thinking about things. It's like very weird. Like while I'm working out or while I'm like in the shower or whatever, you're just thinking, oh, like, and so maybe we should chill out sometimes. Like our brains are always running, for better or for worse.
Yeah, that's one of my goals. think sometimes, my brain does feel like it's going to explode.
Yeah. Well, it's because I like to think about it as like we think of the world as our oyster. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not sure if you think this way, but I truthfully think that like the world, there's so much experience. Mm-hmm. And there's so much that like I can take from the world that I don't want to waste my time just dilly-dallying. Like I want to go take an experience and take full advantage of like the things that I'm, like I'm very fortunate to like have a working body, like be healthy and like have money.
That's literally how I think. It's like I love to speak my mind, and it's like it makes me so happy because then it's like it was in here, but now it's like out here. Yeah. And you also said something where it relates to, you asked me how I don't have regrets. Yeah. I think we took a segue, so I didn't answer that. Yeah. But I how I approach it is that I want to be doing something where it did something for me. Where like if I watch a show, I'm not gonna remember it. Yeah. And I'm not gonna learn something from it. So it does nothing for me in my life. Right. Whereas like, and another activity where I do think it's making the most of my time and something I wouldn't regret would be like either one, it's a really good experience, like a meaningful experience with a loved one, right? It can be like private, it can be whatever, where that's meaningful, right? That's something I would remember. Right. Or number two, it's something that would like grow a skill or like grow something where like it has an effect down the line, right? Yeah. But either way, the headline would be like something that has an effect 5 years or 10 years later. Right. Yeah. Right.
I think this sort of like gung-ho mindset though, at some point it's going to dwindle out. Just like a hot take on it is like that. Okay. I was having a conversation with a few friends and we were talking about like, what do you want your life to look like? Which means like, 30, 40 years down the line, how do you want to be spending the day to day? And, I asked one friend, he goes, I just want to be around a bunch of friends, hanging out, like, drinking a few beers, playing some poker, and just enjoying time, goofing around with a few friends. Yeah. Right. And some other people say like, oh, like I want to be building my own company. Like I want to be, doing something like that. Or like other people are like, I want to be traveling. So it's important. And this is like very tough for a lot of young viewers and even for us now. But I like to think like, what kind of life do I want to live? And for me, it comes down to like, I want to have a really special, glamorous life that like people could write books about. Right? Like that's kind of like that life I want to live, which means like the lavish experiences as well of like at some point I'd love to go on a private jet at some point. Like I want to have these experiences that not many people in the world have access to, just because that's how I want to live my life. But some people don't want to live their life that way. They like the moments with just spending time with family. Like that's what's more important to them. And so they try to maximize that. So I wanted to hear really quickly this is a long thought process, but like what is the kind of life that you want to live? A life with adventure and change and movement, or a life with meaningful relationships that are like really, really deep, maybe one or two of them. Yeah. What is it that you want?
Quick break before Amy answers.
Yeah, I've been drinking so much water recently.
That's good.
Like almost like like a gallon a day because of the 6-pack goal for Thailand, right? So I wake up. First thing I do is have a protein shake. And then 2 or 3 hours later, I'll have my first snack, which is a protein bar, just because that's like all I have in the house. I'm not trying to be super protein heavy, but it just happens to be that. And what I do is I drink like 2 liters of water with the protein bar because it's so chewy. Like it's like so dry and chewy that I end up like subconsciously drinking a lot of water. And then it's like for the rest of the day after that protein bar and water, I'm like constantly going to the bathroom. But anyway, that didn't happen today. I just drank a lot of water just because we're talking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, your hard work's paying off. You're very lean right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I was getting changed this morning, and I live with my parents right now. My mom like couldn't believe what I looked like because she's used to like chubby old Taiki. Like, what is happening? And also, I have like a lot of face fat and like around her face. So it's kind of hard to tell. So I appreciate that. That actually really does mean a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so we were talking about like vision for what you want your life to feel like and look like. And so like it's very easy for someone to say like, oh, I want like the Ferrari and like a private jets all the time. But I'm more asking about like the feeling that you get from your life, right? Is it one of stability, one of action, one of, you know, glitz and glamour? Is it
Yeah.
one of like spirituality for some people?
Yeah. I think as of now, it's of comfortable glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
In terms of, I want to still always be creating, because I think I'll never want to stop creating, but I want it to be like relatively passive, where like passive income and passive creating, where I'm primarily just the idea and the voice or face behind it. You know, so I have a team like helping run any content I make, or like any kind of products I make.
Yeah.
But then what I mean by like comfortable, like glitz and glamour is like the comfort comes from passively making enough money, right? To be able to treat my family, myself, and my friends to amazing experiences, like a yacht, like a private jet. Like I really want to be able to treat people and just go out and be like, order anything you want. Like, is there a restaurant you want to try? I really want to be able to do that.
That is so kind and compassionate. I was saying how, like, I want that shit for myself. Like, I want those experiences for myself, but you're all like, I want to provide those experiences to those I care about.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I want to experience it together, you know?
That's awesome.
So it's like, I guess it's like a combination, you know? It's like relationship, glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
Creating.
But you know what, I at first thought the same way too, but I've realized, like, I actually kind of live a lonely life. Like, there's not many people that I really deeply align with recently. And it's like, even if I were to have like a yacht or something, which hopefully will happen at some point, but like, who would I really invite? Like, I don't have that many close friends anymore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's like, maybe it's all about having close friends. But like, in this stage of my life, I care about the fun, glamorous experience, which is why I'm going traveling. Like, it fits, it all fits together like that.
Yeah, exactly. I also don't think I have many close friends now. Where like, in the past year or so, I've been like, I know why family is forever now, because they're the people who are always there and the people closest to me right now. Yeah. Where like, if I want to have an experience, I want to do it with Sean or with my sister, because I know that person's going to be with me in 10 years. And I want to be able to talk about that experience we had together. Yeah. Whereas like, like as good as my friends are, like my good friends or like college friends are, like I can't guarantee anything. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
That's a sad thought, but it's very true. Yeah. It's crazy that we have like a lot of the same thoughts recently. But I think I think I wrote down what I want my life to feel like somewhere. I just want to pull it up. I'm just curious to see if I did write it up.
You should share it.
So really quickly, like the things that I have wrote down this year were a lot related to what we were talking about. I've been obsessed with trying to make Forbes 30 under 30. Like, that is my goal. And I believe it'll happen. I need a couple years, but I think it'll happen. But I keep trying to tell myself that everything is about the journey. Yeah. Make an amazing journey the goal. Yeah. It's not some, like, benchmark, like Forbes 30 under 30, or, like, being a millionaire. Yeah, yeah. The goal is to have a really good journey. Yeah. And so that mindset has actually made my life a lot easier and not as stressful. Yes. Right? Because like if everything's based off this benchmark, then it's like it's like you either get it or you're done. Yeah. Right? And that's high stakes. Whereas my job is to make this the most amazing journey possible. Yeah. Right. And so that kind of goes into what I want my life to feel like. It's like, man, I had an amazing journey. Right. And so for some people, well, for me, like hanging out with friends is really, really great. Like in just like hanging out every single day, but that's not a journey. Yeah. So when I think back to all the times that I had with my high school friends, all like just hanging out, playing sports together, I cherish those moments. In fact, maybe some of my favorite things. But that's not a journey. Yes. Right? It's like there's a difference there. Yeah, I agree. Because if it was like creating and maintaining the friendships, that's more of a journey. Yeah. And like if they like build something with you. Exactly. So that relates back to like the achievement that has an end to it versus something that doesn't have an end to it that we talked about earlier. Yeah. It's like, wow, everything ties together. This like podcast could be, it could be like a book. It's a full circle. Yeah. I also think like really quickly, just based on our conversation, I feel like another thing that you would want to have said at the end of the journey is that you made impact. Yeah. I think that's also super important for you too. I just want to throw that in there because I think a lot of people, their life's dream is to also have impact. Oh yeah, right? For sure. And as selfish as it sounds, like, I hate this about myself, is that my dream is to not have impact. Oh. It's not to avoid impact. it's like not a priority.
Yeah.
My dream is to live a really cool journey.
Yeah.
To have a really cool journey.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, also like at the end of your life, you're not going to be like, oh, I regret not being a millionaire. You're going to be like, I regret not having a good journey, right? So that's why a journey is very important.
Right.
I think that not making impact a priority is not being selfish. It's not
unselfish.
It's not. Sorry, I'm confused. Like not having being impact. Like so, you're not selfish. Is what I'm trying to say. Because,
let's go. I'm not selfish.
Because I think that part of wanting to make an impact is in a way selfish because you want to leave a legacy. So like, this is kind of what someone says about like why you want to help people. It's like you also want to feel good about yourself.
Right.
It's like it goes both ways. Yeah. So in a way, it's like, oh, I want to leave a legacy because I want a legacy.
Well, so the argument there is that everything is inherently selfish. Even providing to others makes you feel good, which is in turn a selfish.
Yeah. I know. I'm just like throwing out there where it's like, So of course we should help people because it's better to be selfish and help people than to be selfish and not help people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to see if there's anything else that I really like here.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of these things you would relate to actually. Okay, I'm gonna say this line and see if you relate to it. This, I'm not selfish. I just love my life so much that I don't like to compromise.
Oh.
Do you relate to that at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. So, so what's funny is like I used to be the friend who would like listen to my friend from elementary school who's like more the queen bee, right? Mm-hmm. So like we would go to a Chinese party and she'd be like, ew, I don't like the fish, and I'd be like, ew, I don't like it either. But eventually over time I started getting like a really strong like backbone, I guess, and I want to get the best out of everything we get. Like if there's like one nice piece of steak like and she's there like I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. Yeah.
So like not with family. That's also how when I realized that's when I realized I matured is when there is one juicy piece of steak left between my sister and I'll give it to her because when we were younger we would fight over it.
That's real. That's some real stuff. I'm an only child, by the way.
I know.
Yeah, I always get it, but Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because we used to fight over it, but with friends, I'm like, well, not friends, with like people I don't care about as much. I'm like, my life is important.
Right.
I think everyone should think like that. Honestly, you know.
Yeah. I talk a little bit about how money isn't the goal necessarily. What I ultimately want at the end of the day is exclusive and special experiences, total freedom, and fulfilling relationships. Yeah. Like those are the three things that I really want. Yeah. And so money is helpful for almost all of those things, but it's not the end all be all. Yeah. It's like the absolute freedom money does afford. But sometimes you can have absolute freedom without the money. Yeah. Right. And power might be more important there, or something else like spirituality might be more important for absolute freedom. Yeah. You could just free your mind without any of those external things, which I think is pretty hard for me personally. It's tough. Yeah. But I can't do it. Yeah, like in Millionaire Fastlane, he was also describing how money gives freedom, and I realized the thing that I wanted was freedom. Yeah. But above all, I'm gonna totally switch subjects here really quickly. Sorry. And we can get into my perspectives of the trip, the things that I want for the trip, but it's not really that much. It's like building confidence, exploring the world, like understanding different cultures, and it's mainly like it's gonna be a good story. like I want to have a good story to tell from this experience, and I know I'm going to, and so, but I won't have a good story unless I go do this thing. And like I said before, I want my life to be a good story. Yeah. And like that does sound a little like crazy now that I say that out loud. So like it's also like a journey to find myself. Yeah. Right. But like if the ways that you find yourself are through doing things that are going to push you out your comfort zone, and this is an example of that, of pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And so I wanted to go back here, and this may be a little deep, but I think a lot of what prevents us from reaching our full potential, but it's something that really matters to me, is like I always get upset at myself if I don't reach my full potential.
Yeah.
That's what like actually bothers me. So like when I play tennis, right? Like if I lose, I'm fine with losing if I played my best game.
Yeah.
But if I like messed up a lot and I know I could have done better, that's what actually bothers me.
Yeah.
Same with basketball. Like if we win, actually doesn't matter to me. But if I play well and we lose, great. But if I play well, if I don't play well and we win, I'm upset at myself because I know I could have been better.
Yeah.
And so that's what really like bothers me at my core is I'm not living up to my full potential. Like and I'm getting somewhere with this, which is I want to talk about insecurities, right? And I think a lot of being young is battling. Well, one, finding what your insecurities are, which takes a lot of time because like it gets shoved deep down. And dealing with those insecurities and then overcoming them. And so the reason why I had brought that up is because I was talking about, or I was writing about my insecurities. And for someone like you, who I think like has it all, right? Like a very loving husband, you live in the New York City, 100K on YouTube, a lot of growth, a lot of like standard metrics of success. And I'm sure like you had to overcome a lot of insecurities to get to this point. So I'd like to hear your journey through those. Just because it's like selfish, it's helpful to me.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe maybe we can start with like, okay, I want to talk about your current insecurities, your previous ones, and then how you overcame them. So maybe you start like chronologically. So go like from what things that you were concerned about before that you've found ways to overcome. Like romance is a big one for me.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just throwing out topics that you can go any which way, and then we'll go through the time.
Okay. So, in everything you said first, I want to I want to respond to a few things. It's like the introspective.
Yes,
So first of all, I really like how you value you and yourself and your life so much. I think that, and also that you think highly of yourself. I think I'm the same way too, and I don't think it's how people think that means. It's not being arrogant. I think that a lot of people should value themselves in their life more because if they did, then they would take care of themselves more. And part of taking care of yourself is working hard to reach your potential because you believe in your potential.
That's so well said.
Thank you.
That is so well said. That's from a book or something, right? No. That's so good. That's so good. I'm gonna have to write that down. But actually, I kind of want to write that down now, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, of course not. I'm so honored.
So it was about like. It was about reaching full potential, and it's like, it's not arrogance.
Yeah, like
it's not arrogance.
Yeah, thinking highly of yourself and valuing your life is not arrogant. Yeah. Of yourself, and then how did that connect to reaching full potential? Yeah, it's like you, because then you'll care about yourself more, and part of the self-care is working hard to reach your potential because you believe in it. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I'll stop speaking for a moment because I know it like kind of. Yeah, no, I got it. We're good. Okay. Thank goodness for the auto section. Oh yeah. Yeah, because I think I also read somewhere that the more positively you think about yourself, the easier it is to get things done, right? Because you're like happy, you're like, oh, I should do it instead of being like scared, like I'll fail at it, Totally. Yeah, and then the other thing you said where you're like, you have it all. It's so funny because like in many circumstances you see someone who appears to have it all. Where like I think that this is just another example of like a lot of external things don't mean that you have it all, because I think that I need to create a lot more inner peace. And I think that while I care about achievements a lot, so I wouldn't necessarily pick inner peace over what I have now. But I think I really need to have that because I think my health needs to be better. Where like it looks good, I'm fit, but we talked about how maybe our hair isn't in the best state. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. So little things like that where like I was watching this documentary with Sean about longevity and the people who live the longest in the world, like in Japan, they're like super happy no fear or like no like stress or worries or anything, right? And so that's something that keeps coming back to me, where like I need to take a break, or like I need to set boundaries. And like even outside of that, there's still so many more things that I want to achieve where I'm like, I've not made it at all, you know? Like honestly, maybe I'll never make it, but that's why we have to base our self-worth off of non-definite achievements. You know? Right. So yeah, like don't think of like I wouldn't call myself successful. I think that both of us have achieved some forms of success, but success is always an ongoing journey. And I think people are successful if they feel like they're, you know, making the most of their time.
That's great. That's what it is right there. Like that's an unlock for me. It's like people feel successful if they believe they're making the most of their time. That's the answer right there. And I think that's just the way that people should live their life, is to make the most of their time. Yeah. And that's when success will come. It's not like when you get that shiny thing, which we were talking about throughout the podcast, right? It's like, it's not when you get that offer letter from whatever. It's what it is. It's like that. It's that you feel like you're making the most out of your time. Yeah. It's like, as long as you're doing things that are good for you, you'll get somewhere. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Okay. Great. Now that we've got that out of the way. Insecurities. So in chronological order, so I'm not sure this anywhere else, but I'm a very hairy person. So I had like a mustache, like pretty thick compared to just peach fuzz, you know. Got it. So like when I would, like from a young age, like, you know, I would like pull at it. Like, so TMI. Yeah. But and then like when I sit down, I would be like this with my hands in front. Oh, to like cover up. Yeah. And then like that was a big insecurity. So I had so that's like a huge physical insecurity where that really hurts your confidence. So that's why I actually advocate for someone to get laser hair removal, or like even to the extreme plastic surgery, as long as it's like not super extreme or like risky, to if it really will help your confidence, because that helping with the physical aspect trickles down into your confidence, which 1000%. Yeah, which then makes everything easier, which makes you actually able to go out and reach your potential, you know? Yeah. So that's one. Well, that's interesting there, because did you end up getting laser hair? Yeah. Okay. And then you have no regrets. You think it's a great choice for your mental health and your confidence? Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what would happen if I got it earlier, because I feel like after I got it, I just started becoming the person I was. Interesting. Well, so we talked like a couple, like last time we played basketball together, we talked about like plastic surgery, right? And so there's some part of me that, not to say that your particular situation is this, but it's like not necessarily a cop out, but like as in, did you feel like you were able to come to terms with, this is how I am and this is how it's going to be, and I'm okay with that? Or was surgery a way to avoid that confrontation? Yeah, I think the hair on your face thing is really hard, because I feel like that's not necessarily an enhancement. True. You know? Yeah, good point. That's like, I felt weird. Yeah. You know? That's, like, it sounds like I had a full mustache, but like, it wasn't full handlebar. Yeah. But it was just like, I think it held me back a lot. Also, like, you know, talking to boys too, right? Yeah. And to feel like a pretty girl sometimes. Yeah. So I think that's why this is something that I would definitely do no matter what. It doesn't have anything to do with my self-worth. It's something that is like, I don't know how. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Totally get it. By the way, for some context, we were talking about like changing heights. Yeah. Right, like last time. Exactly. But okay, interesting. And so the thing is, what I'm getting at here is like, when you think of overcoming insecurity, like generally, surgery isn't the answer. Oh yeah, like that's generally, right? Like, yeah. Sorry, I guess it was an insecurity that wasn't the point of your question. No, but honestly, though, like now that I think about it, if you do have access to some technique or some method that can remove an insecurity,
Mm-hmm.
like do that thing.
Yeah.
But if you have like a problem with your self-image that is deeper than something that's cosmetic, then getting surgery will not help.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Just like buying a new piece of clothing, that will not help because you want another one.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's like if I had gotten, I may get plastic surgery at some point, but let's say I do, like that'll open the floodgates. If I'm like deeply insecure about something, I'll just keep changing everything about myself. So there obviously there's like a cost benefit analysis there, but just a thought. Anyway, so you had you were a little on the hairier end, and then you got laser. This was in high school, I'm assuming, right? And then so afterwards, was it like a 180 switch of like, oh, I feel much better. I feel like I'm more me.
I think there were some immediate switches of how I thought about myself, but most of the growth came gradually, where I would speak more in class. I would initiate conversations more. And I thought that I was a shy person before that, but I was actually not. I was actually extroverted. I love talking and meeting people.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, really quickly, I have this interesting study that I was reading about, which was they gathered a bunch of people in a makeup room, and they put makeup on everybody. They put scars. They put big scars on them, and they say, you're gonna go into this interview. And so for half the group, they just let them go into the interview with makeup scars. And for the other half of the group, they said, right before you go in, let me touch up the makeup, and they remove the scars. And so these two different groups go in, right? One of them thinks they have scars on their face, and one of them actually has scars on their face. And what it turns out is that they all reported that they were being discriminated against because of their scar, saying things like, "Oh, I could tell this interviewer was looking at my scar the entire time, and I knew I wouldn't get the job the second I walked in because they were, eyeing me so differently because I had a scar." And those are the people that didn't have scars on their face. So, really quickly, I want to go to shows like you can leverage confirmation bias to help you out, but more is like the world's not out to get you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like the having this sort of victim mentality can be really dangerous. Yes. So try to avoid it at all times. Yes. So I'm talking about cosmetic changes. I thought that was an interesting study that really changed my perspective on how I carry myself. Carry myself like I'm not perfect. Yeah. But like I'm that guy. Yeah. Like, carry yourself like that, and then people will treat you like that. Yeah, yeah. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I think super cool study. Yeah, yeah. It also relates to, I think, the spotlight effect, where you think that everyone's thinking about how weird you are. No one cares. Yeah, they're too for the most part. They're too preoccupied with themselves, and if they judge you, then you don't want to be friends with them anyway. And that's so important to have as a content creator. When there's like 100,000 people looking at you, like you got to have that sort of a mentality built up. Right? Yeah, yeah. Like one video I had a zit, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna film anyway because everyone gets zits. And that's why probably the viewers appreciate you more because you're just like authentically you. Yeah, I hope I'm that way. It was really hard to film in the beginning because I was nervous in front of the camera. Yeah. I still feel like I'm not 100% myself. I think like in podcasts, especially when I film videos with other people, I'm much more myself. Got it. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Okay, so we were talking about laser hair removal, and then so once that, well, also, I'm not gonna point things out, so you have to work with me. But I think we were talking about you being like on the taller end. No, maybe not. I don't think maybe there's someone else. I'm not sure. You're not even on the. I'm like average. Yeah. But tall for an Asian girl. Okay. Because every other Asian. Sorry, we're talking about being Asian. About being Asian in a non-Asian environment as an insecurity. But anyway, I wasn't making fun of your height. That's what I just wanted to clarify. That was not what was happening. Okay, sorry. Continue about your talking about height. Yeah, it's okay. I think height was not an insecurity. Okay. I think that friend that I was talking about that I had, who was the queen bee. Yeah. She made me insecure about a lot of things. I think because she was the cooler person. Because she was better at volleyball and basketball, and that's what was cool, So I was insecure about being good at math. I was like, I wanted to be proud of it, and I was proud of it, but that's still an insecurity because that's not what kids like, And then she had longer legs, and like I think
it's very easy to compare yourself as a teenager because that's the only thing you can go off of. And Asian parents don't necessarily mentor you about that. And she was the only other Asian basically in my grade. So
well, in fact, Asian parents are the ones comparing you to other Asian kids.
Exactly.
They're exacerbating the comparison problem.
Yeah,
generally.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, other insecurities. Like I guess I never felt desired, because I did have a previous relationship before Sean, but before college, I never got asked to prom, never got asked to homecoming, and I was just like, why?
So that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it is. You do need that validation sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this recently about like where does confidence come from, and ideally in an ideal perfect world it comes from within because no one can take that away from you. But there's a balance, because if it all comes from within, let's say like, oh, I'm a really good painter and I believe that deep down, but I'm in reality not a good painter. That is arrogance.
Yeah.
So there needs to be like a balance of external validation, understanding like, okay, like I'm actually good at this thing because people will pay for my product.
Yeah.
Or like people enjoy what I'm putting out. Right. Versus being like completely arrogant and like, you know, not even thinking I'm just better than everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a balance between those two.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of your insecurities like before and now?
Man. Dude, this is crazy. I feel like I gained more insecurities over the past few years than lost. I was originally insecure about being Asian. I remember this one moment where like I was around like 5 or 6 years old, and sorry mom, but I come back home with a self-portrait because we had art class, and I scribbled it all up because I didn't like how I looked.
Aww.
And I knew like if I was a parent and I saw my kid do that, that'd be crushing.
Yeah.
So I was saying, that's why I said sorry mom, but my mom knows about it because she was there, and so we laugh about it now. But there was a time where I was really insecure about how I looked. And I think, like, to this point, like, yeah, I'm still a little insecure about certain things. But I can't change them. So, like, at a certain point, you just have to accept it. And so I guess, like, yeah, I was pretty insecure about my looks growing up, about being Asian. I, like, almost, you know, hid my Asian side away from all my friends. And then I wasn't really good at talking to girls. And then I think like what makes someone successful growing up and when they're young is like, are you fast? Are you good at sports?
Yeah.
And do you talk to girls?
Yeah.
Or do you talk to guys?
Yeah.
Those are the 3 things that define success.
Yes.
And so growing up, I was actually very good at sports. So I was very fast and I was very good at sports. And so I actually had a ton of confidence. I had a bunch of guy friends. And then all of a sudden when it shifted to talking to girls was the cool thing, I was screwed. Like I had no experience. I didn't have any sisters or like, and my mom is not like, someone that you're talking to really like that. So I remember being insecure about that, and then I stopped growing at a certain point, so I'm like 5'8" right now, and when I got to college, I was not insecure about my height at all. In fact, all my friends like thought I was 5'10", 5'11", because I feel like you gotta carry yourself as a tall person.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like once TikTok became huge, and I became friends with the wrong types of people, they were saying all these things like, oh, like I'm not gonna even like go on a date with this guy because he's not 6 feet.
What?
And they were saying, well, yeah. So I had a shift in friends throughout my time in college.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of friends, or like a lot of female friends who were like on the more conventionally pretty side, and they'd make a lot of these like shallower remarks on height, and that sort of got in my head, and so I was a little insecure of my height. I remember I would like puff out my chest a little bit more when walking around to get that extra like half inch or whatever. I wear like Air Force Ones, but I still do wear because I think they're cool.
Yeah,
but I originally got them for like a little boost in height and things like that. Yeah, I started to care more about recently. But I think at its core, the thing that I was most insecure about was I didn't believe that I could do things that I set my mind to. So there's just like, we talked about this connection between thinking something and then doing it. And you want to have as little distance between those two aspects, right? And so for the longest time, I had a big gap between the two. I would have a lot of aspirations, a lot of thoughts, and I wouldn't act on them. And time again, because I waited so long and I wouldn't do it, I had like internally convinced myself that I can't do it. And so this feeling of like I can't do something is something to be super insecure about for me, right? Like I can't do it, and that's what the whole year was about. That's what all 2023 was about. Doing things that I'm bad at, right? Like putting myself out of my comfort zone to overcome those insecurities. And so to this day, I still have some insecurities, mostly around like talking to women out of nowhere. But like a lot of my professional insecurities have been, for the most part, cured or like deeply fixed. Because I, changed the distance between thought and then execution. So this year I came out with a podcast, which I'd been working really hard, or I wanted to do for a long time. Finally got it out. 12 episodes in now. 13 episodes in actually now. And posting it every week. And making a lot of good connections in the world of venture capital. And it kind of like reaffirmed the fact that like I can do it. Whatever I really set my mind to, like I can do. But I didn't have that before because I just kept running away from doing things.
That's amazing.
And so, I'm sure there's a bunch more that I have a lot of discipline problems, which is, your channel's great for that, by the way. And a lot of insecurities about deep relationships. That's like another big one is I don't feel like I've had a relationship, not romantic, but like also friendship wise, that I've felt like such unbelievable chemistry with in years. I feel like I have a lot of like really good friends. But like this really deep, special relationship, like like you and Sean have, and I just don't. That isn't very common for me, so I kind of insecure about that.
I think the latter I can also relate to. I think a lot of things you said. Like I noticed we have a lot of like physical, like appearance insecurities, like both of us, but on a side note, we've been talking for like 2 hours, so really? I think that we have chemistry.
I was going to say, actually, like, of all the people that I've met pretty recently, definitely our chemistry is of the better ones. Maybe the best one. Because I would get bored around 30 minutes. And I'm, like, still talking.
Oh my
god.
That's
crazy.
I feel like we talk forever, which we shouldn't, because, like, I mean, that would be, like, forever. But,
it's too much time. Well, also, it's like the same thing about, like, execution to thoughts and ideas. Like the more we talk about it, the longer the distance gets in my mind is how I think about it. But it's really rare that I meet someone as introspective and as growth mindset oriented as me, and you are more than me. So it's like it's so rare that like every single time that like you invite me out to something, I really try to go to, because I know like I don't meet these types of people that often. So when I have the chance, like I better go freaking hang out. That's I'm not sure if I ever told you that, but that's my mindset. So like whenever I like hear that you want to do something, like okay, I'll find a way to make it happen, or I'll try. But I was, when you were doing karaoke, I was sick, unfortunately. But I really wanted to go, even though I'm a really bad singer. I wanted to go because like I don't get many chances to meet people that are so aligned with the way I think.
No worries. We ended up not being able to do it because my sister had a sore
shoot,
throat.
Okay.
So rain check, we'll do it another time. But that's awesome. I feel like that's great. I mean, I love when you come hang out too, because I was like, honestly, when I invited you to karaoke, I was like, Taiki's gonna make this so much more fun. I was like, I think Taiki's the one that's really gonna make this night. Like, I told my sister that too, and she's like, darn.
That means a lot. That really does mean a lot. That really does mean a lot. That means a lot to me. I think I want to be that friend. I want to be that person that brings the energy. So my friends and I also talk about social dynamics, and we say like there are certain people that are floor raisers. So like within the given outcomes of like a fun time, like who are the people that are going to raise the bottom, like the least fun it can be. If someone comes in, they're going to raise that level. And there's certain people that can like put the top off on a night and make it really, really special. But also those who like can come in with a bad mood and ruin the night too. So you want to fill your room with a bunch of floor raisers. Right? Who can like consistently make the night fun no matter what happens. And so we tried really hard to do that. So that really does mean a lot.
Yeah, because I feel like you're just a very positive person, and like you can literally talk to anyone, which like that's really what makes get-togethers fun, you know?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I that's another key distinction. It's like get-togethers as an adult are fun because you talk to interesting people. Whereas when you're younger, it's all about like drinking more. At least for me, drinking more, partying more, and like more hookupy based things. And I'm not sure if I ever told you this, but I was a club promoter. Did I tell you that?
Club?
Club promoter.
Oh, whoa.
When I was in college, when I turned 21, this was a really interesting experience for me. I learned a lot about being shallow and like insecurities through being a club promoter. And so there's this, when you guys go to Boston, there'll be this club called Royale, which does a bunch of raves and has concerts, and it's a pretty, you know, solid sized club in Boston. And when I turned 21, I started working there as a promoter, which means it's my job to get people in the door. And that was a very interesting experience. People treated me very differently once I had the title of club promoter. For better and for worse. They're like, oh, like he's the fun party guy. Like he knows how to talk to everybody. He knows how to get us in. And I was able to provide a luxurious experience to my friends. Be like, hey, like I know this guy. He's gonna come get us. And I love that feeling. Of providing that luxurious experience to them. Like the what I was talking about, living an amazing life with exclusive experiences. Like clubbing is part of that, right? Being someone who when you're at a club has a different experience because they're with a promoter, right? And being that promoter is also an exclusive experience. So I did that for about a year. Once again, people treated me very differently, in a good way, but in a shallow way. And so for, I guess, a better part of that year, I'd gone out clubbing like 3 nights a week. So like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I got burned out from clubbing. But you learn a lot about how the business of entertainment and nightlife works. You realize how shallow it is of a place. It's essentially set up for men to meet women and for women to have a luxurious experience because they don't have to pay to get in and they don't have to pay for drinks and they're always given attention throughout the night. But what's so funny is women also hate clubs because it's almost like degrading at times because people can just like come up and, you know, like make you uncomfortable or like touch you or something. And so just like being behind the scenes of all that was very interesting. Some great memories. And so during that time I remember feeling insecure about deep relationships because I'd made so many shallow ones.
I see.
So I fun time in college for sure. But now I'm done with clubbing. Like I really don't go clubbing unless all my friends are going and I'm going there to share that experience with them. But I no longer go to like meet a girl. It's just not the right place for my type of women. That's not how you're gonna meet the girl of your dreams in a club.
Well, it sounds like a great experience overall. I think everything in life is still a good experience because you learn from it, of course.
Totally.
And so what was the lesson that you got from overcoming your insecurity about not being able to do something?
The lesson that I've learned.
Like what advice would you give someone who has that similar insecurity?
Oh man, it's so difficult because like everyone has different mental states and different ways that they deal with challenge, right? And so what often inspires change for me is when I get so fed up with myself, like I'm almost like disgusted at myself. And that's when change happens. Like something drastic happens in my mind. So there was a point where I was like sitting at my computer, staying up really, really late, thinking about building this podcast and not actually doing it. And I was like, Taiki, what are you doing? And I was so fed up with the way that I was living my life that I changed. And that's not a sustainable system, right? Because that's like on the extremes of how to change, right? So the lessons that I learned is that creating good habits creates momentum for you to do whatever you need to do that is big, right? So if your room is not clean, this is not necessarily applicable to everybody, but like if your room's not clean and you're not like eating right and you're not working out right, it's hard for you to do something very productive.
Yeah.
Just because like the other aspect of your life is not taken care of, right? So you need to have positive momentum to even think about big things.
Yeah.
Right. So take care of the little things first.
Yeah.
And then the big good things will come later.
Yeah, I think that's
a key thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like for me specifically, I remember feeling so like unconfident and uninspired, undisciplined, and at the same time, like everything is kind of like momentum based. When things are going down, like they will continue to go down until you make little changes to start coming back up. And so for me, the first thing was just go to the gym. Right? Go to the gym for like a week. You can still still keep doing those bad habits, but just go to the gym. And then you add another habit. Yeah. And you keep building up, and all of a sudden, like your confidence is back. And when your confidence is back, you can go out and try the big thing. Yeah. Exactly. So like half a year ago from now, I would not be able to do this big 5-month-long trip. Yeah. I didn't have the confidence. But over the past 6 months, I had been focusing on good habits. And the confidence that comes from focusing on those good habits and being disciplined on those small things accumulates over time so that you can have the confidence to go do something big. Yeah, for sure. And so that's kind of my key lesson and takeaway. Yeah. And that worked well for me, right? Take care of the little things and the big things will come.
Yeah. That's amazing that you did that all in 6 months, because I think that a lot of people, they're daunted by making a change because they think it'll be so hard or like take such a long time. Right. Yeah. But in the grand scheme of things, 6 months to make the whole rest of your life amazing is not a big cost at all.
That's right. You'd be so surprised how much your life can change within a year. Right. And even within 6 months, you'd be so surprised. And so just for some context, I had graduated in May 2023. I went on a trip to Japan and Korea with my friends I was a senior, so senior grad trip. And then I think at that time, I was like almost 180 pounds. Oh, and so since then, now I'm like 153. So within 6-7 months, I had lost, 27 pounds or so. Wow. And, I was feeling terrible when I got back from Japan and Korea, almost to a point where like I couldn't enjoy life. Because my brain was so occupied with like, I was so like, why am I so unhealthy? Like, why can't I do what I need to do? Like, why can't I start mobilizing? Why can't I start doing things that I couldn't enjoy just day-to-day life? Because I'm thinking, I should be working on my podcast. I should be, recruiting for a job, right? Yeah. But that's just, it's terrible to live that way. Yeah. It's terrible to live that way. Focus on the little things and have pride that you're doing the little things well. And then you will build up the confidence to do big things. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
It's a journey.
Yeah, for sure. When I feel down on what I'm doing and like, let me just go to the gym and I'll be better.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think another big thing is you got to surround yourself with good people. And that's... Oh, yeah. And that's really difficult, honestly. That's the one thing I haven't figured out yet. It's like I am around good people, but I don't know if they're my people. That makes sense.
Yeah. I really need like energy givers, right, like that. And yeah, one comment I'll make about like overall the insecurities is like, I think it's like okay to have insecurities about your appearance, because like, first of all, that's natural, but to not feel bad about it, and I think the way to like get rid of physical insecurities, like for also the viewers out there, would be to realize that it's not something we can control. Like you said that. Yeah. And something I thought of the other day actually was like, until you take care of all the things you can control, don't worry about the things you can't control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, and also if like an insecurity is about your appearance, like in fact that's great because that means you're not insecure about, you know, potentially big parts of your personality, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that would be harder because if you're a sucky person, that's way worse than if you're, you know, slightly shorter than the 6-foot guy.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And I had this. I was listening to this other podcast recently, and it was this like short, bald guy, and he has a lot of confidence, a lot of spunk on him. It's actually the Graham Stephan podcast called the Iced Coffee Hour, and so this guy who's like 5'5", he manages to get like the most beautiful women in Hollywood, and it's, you know, he has so much confidence, and what he was saying is, the key thing that he wants to teach his kids is that like you're dealt a certain set of cards, and you can't change those cards, so there's no reason to be mad at them. You just have to work harder. So it's like everything that you lack, like you can work harder to get.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like now try to live by that mindset. I think I actually wrote it down somewhere. I just want to go back to it because I'm kind of curious what I wrote.
For sure. Because you could keep like wallowing in it, but that's not going to do anything.
Right. So I wrote, don't be a victim. You're not a victim of your circumstances. The mindset is you just have to work 2 or 3 times as hard.
Yeah.
And that's like an exhausting thought. But if you think about it like that, that means nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
And I like that more than giving up and saying, "Oh, it's impossible. I'll never get it," because I'm this victim of circumstance.
Yeah, I'd feel worse if I don't try. You know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm out of water.
Yeah. I mean, you can get some. I'm almost out of water.
Okay.
Too, I think this is a good place to end.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Like, what is your state right now as Taiki, as you're embarking on this 5 to 6 month trip in just a couple of days?
What is the state of Taiki? That's a good question. I would say this is going to be the story that I tell my kids and future generations. So make it a good one. Make it a good story. If I'm going to go out there and just sit on the Airbnb couch and watch TV all day, like that's a waste of my time. So going back to making the most out of my time. And that's the state of Taiki, is experience the world, make the most of my time. And I'm sort of like obsessed with this mentality of like, I want the world to bend to my will, which sounds crazy. But like, the world often dictates what we do, right? Which is like through school systems, through institutions, through laws, which you should follow for sure. But the idea is that like, I want to live a life in which the world bends to me. And there's some really like powerful, charismatic people that the world bends more towards. And like people can say that about like pretty privilege, right? Like people can make the argument about like the white man as like how like the world bends to them. Yeah. But I believe deep down that I have like the intellect and the talent and and like the ability to work hard to make the world bend to my will. And that's what I want.
I love that.
So that's the state of Taiki.
I love that so much. You couldn't have ended on a better note. That was great.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much.
This is awesome.
Thanks so much for doing this with me.
Wow. How long was this?
Okay, 2 hours and 30 minutes.